Hello, welcome to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen, and today I've got an end of year BookTube tag video for you. Now what I really wanted to do is just do a chatty video, reflecting back on the year and giving you some of my thoughts and highlights from 2024. So I thought a great way to do that would be to do it as a end of year tag video and take inspiration from other people's videos in the past or ones that have already come out this year. Now there's a number of different questions that are generally asked in these videos, and I went through them, and there was probably about 20 to 25 different sort of questions that people generally answer, and I've cherry picked the ones that I really wanted to talk about and ended up with a list of about 10. So first of all, I wanted to give you a bit of a summary about my reading year for 2024. Did I reach my goals? How am I getting on? So if you've watched my channel before, then I've said this multiple times, but my reading goal is always to read about 15 books a month, which takes me to about 180 for the year. So on average, I'm reading about one book every 2 days. Now that target would normally be very easily achievable for me because in previous years I've read over 200 books. But this year I really did struggle, mainly because I have a new job this year, which is slightly more demanding than my previous role, and it means more travel as well. So I travel a lot for work, and because of that I don't have as much time in the evenings to read as I would if I wasn't travelling as much, because quite a lot of times when I am travelling I'm going to meals with colleagues. In addition to that, I obviously still have to do YouTube rights, so it does take quite a bit of time to prepare videos, record them, edit them, and then do all of the other admin that sits around that in terms of posting on Instagram and that sort of thing. So there's still so much more that I want to do in that space, but I feel like I'm literally at the maximum capacity I can in order to commit fully and do well at my actual full-time job, to really focus and deliver some good content for you guys as part of my hobby, and also then spend time with friends and family, and of course find time to actually read the books. So as a result of that, I've actually struggled to hit my reading goal of 15 books a month. I started the year off quite well, and by the mid-year point I was bang on target. I'd read 90 books by the end of June, and then started to struggle a little bit more through July and August. And so I had quite a lot of catching up to do by the time I got to November, and I read like an absolute fiend in November to really catch up, which still meant that I had 15 books to read in December. And December is always a difficult year to read in, right, as well, because obviously it's coming up to Christmas, so there's lots of Christmas preparation, a lot more social events that I go to, and also in order to get out all of the content that I want to get out for the end of the year, so my December reading wrap up, my Q4 roundup, my favourites for 2024, then it basically means that I cut the month short very slightly so that I have time to record all of those over the holidays and get those up onto YouTube. So I've been under quite a lot of pressure this month as well to read as much as I can, and I'm nearly there. As I'm sitting here right now, it's currently the 21st of December. I've just logged my 177th book, and I'm 20% into book number 178. So that means once I finish that book, which I should get done tonight, it's only a novella, then I'll only have 2 more books to go till the end of the year, and that should be achievable over the next couple of days. But I'll be recording my wrap up for December on the 28th, so couldn't short by a couple of days. Now one of the things I've really noticed is in the past when I've read more books, a lot of the books that I was reading were around the 300 page mark, maybe 350 pages. But I've also noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed the same, the books seem to be getting longer and longer, right? And I don't know if this is changes with Amazon and how much authors now get paid by page count, but I feel like books are getting longer and longer. So it's not uncommon now to pick up a book and it be 360, 400, 450, even 500 plus pages, and obviously so you therefore don't get through them quite as fast as you do when it's a slightly shorter book as well. So that is a factor that I need to take into consideration, and therefore one of the ways that I counterbalance some of the longer books that I read is to also pepper in quite a few shorter books and novellas as well, so I can make up my book count basically. So this leads me on to my plans for 2025. I think I'm actually going to be kinder to myself next year, and I'm going to set my target at 150 books for the year, because I think this will be so much more achievable. Even though I'll probably end up reading closer to 180 books, I just feel like if I set it at 180, there'll be so much more pressure on myself to actually deliver that number. And I don't want to take the enjoyment out of reading or force myself to read books that I don't really want to read just because they are lower in page count and therefore will help me hit my goal. So I definitely want to go for quality over quantity, and if I'm picking up more books around the 500 page mark, so be it. And that means I'll just slow down my book count just slightly. But what I'm really looking for is my page count, right? Because I think that's more important. And you can't really kind of measure that on GoodReads as such, but in my head I'm going to kind of set myself a page reading goal. And therefore, as long as I hit that, it doesn't matter if I read 120 books or 200 books if I'm reading a good number of pages. So kind of that's how I'm going to look at it in 2025. And like I say, mainly it's to take the pressure off myself, because if I set myself a target, I really want to hit it, and not just hit it but smash it. And so I think that will help me take a little bit of the stress out of the situation, particularly as we get towards the end of next year, when I'm really desperately trying to catch up if I start to fall behind. So obviously I'm going to continue reading in 2025, and I absolutely intend to continue my YouTube channel as well. I've been really enjoying it so far. And my current schedule, where I upload one video every Monday and then one every other Thursday, is also really working for me. I thought long and hard about doing 2 videos a week, but I think that would just be too much and slightly too much pressure. And so I think 3 videos every 2 weeks is absolutely doable with my current schedule, and so that's what I'm going to continue to do in 2025. But of course I will continue to review that and make adjustments if I need to. So getting stuck straight into the good stuff now. The question for myself is, what was the best book that I read, and also the best series that I read? And of course I'm not going to be able to give you just one answer, but as I was going down my list, there was definitely a standout book and series, and some others that I've really enjoyed this year as well. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Hills of Shivers and Shadows from the Frozen Fate trilogy. I'm not sure if you'd call this a series or a trilogy, but these were all 5-star reads. So you've got Hills of Shivers and Shadows, A Cage of Ice and Echoes, and then A Heart of Frost and Scars by Godwin. Now this is wonderfully ironic, because I always say I really don't like reading really long books, and I certainly don't like reading duets or trilogies where we're following the same couple, because I feel like unless you know it's going to be really good, it's quite a big investment, right, to jump in at book 1 and then you've got to plough through a couple of books. So this is the biggest irony of all time for me, because not only is this a trilogy following the same characters, but every single book in this series is huge. This first one was 600 pages, Cage of Ice and Echoes was a similar sort of page length, and then the last one, Heart of Frost and Scars, was 649 pages. So a huge tome of a story, but absolutely worth every single moment I spent on these books. Completely riveted from the very first page throughout. Godwin does not waste a word. She is absolutely a genius at what she has done with these books, and I can't speak about these highly enough. So every single one of these books was my favourite of the month in the month that I read them. They were also my favourite of the quarter. They are going to appear again in my favourites of the year, and I'll probably talk about them for many years to come as well. So if you haven't heard about this trilogy or read this trilogy yet, I'll just give you a very high level flavour. The main thing to know is though that this is a dark romance trilogy. You really need to check your content and trigger warnings for this, because it is not for the faint-hearted, but like I say, it is absolutely brilliantly written, and if you like dark romance, would highly recommend. So in this trilogy we are following Frankie. She is married to a man named Monty, and they are very much in love. But they have an argument because she finds out she's pregnant, and when she tells Monty about it, he is not happy about this situation at all because he really didn't want children. So they have an argument about it. He kind of goes off and she's waiting for him to come back so they can carry on talking about it. But before he has a chance to come home, another man breaks into her house and kidnaps her and basically takes her to a very remote location. However, when they get to their destination, they are not alone, because the man who's taken her is a man named Denver, and he's got 3 sons, Cody, Wolfson and Leonid, and they are not happy that Denver has brought her here, and so now she is trapped in the wilderness with no way to escape, no way out, with 4 very wild men. And then it's the story really of uncovering why she's there, who Denver is, why she's been taken, who the sons are, and starting to build a relationship, uncovering kind of secrets. Like I said, it gets very, very dark indeed, and that's all I'm going to say about it, because as you go through the story, each book has a definite feel and sort of atmosphere about it, but all absolutely amazing. So definitely give this one a try. Another series then that I loved was the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. The Deal is also going to be up there as one of my favourite books of the year, and after I read this particular one, which features Hannah and Garrett, I went on to read all of the other books in this series and literally loved every single one of this series. Really, really highly recommend. I'm sure many of you have read this one already because it's an old favourite, old classic, and I'm so glad that I finally caught up and got through this series this year. Then we have the Fallen series by Gabrielle Sands. This first book in this series is When She Unravels. I've so far read the first 3 books in this series, and I am hoping to read the 4th and final book in the series in January. But I absolutely love Gabrielle Sands. I discovered her this year, absolutely have loved everything I've read by her so far, and would definitely recommend this whole series. And like I said, this is a Mafia series. And then finally, the other series that I kind of read in its entirety this year, in fact I listened to them all on audiobook, and that was Kandi Steiner's Red Zone Rivals series. So that is a kind of a sports college romance featuring a group of friends who are all football players, and I absolutely loved every single one of the books in that series. But my favourite by far was Blindside, which was book 2, because it was fake dating, which is one of my favourite tropes, so definitely recommend. Okay, so the next question then is, what was my favourite new release of 2024? Going through the list, I've got, in addition to the ones kind of I've already spoken about, because some of those were new releases this year, I really, really enjoyed Play Along by Liz Tomforde. This is book 4 in her Windy City series, and in this one we're following Kennedy and Isaiah, and this one is a baseball romance. Again, this is kind of a fake marriage trope. They kind of get married on a bit of a whim in Las Vegas, and in the morning Kennedy very much wants to kind of annul the marriage, but unfortunately for her, she has been spotted by the press. It's now in the press, and so they have to kind of keep their relationship going until at least the end of the season, and so I absolutely loved this one as well. And then the other one was God of War by Rina Kent, which was book 6 in her Legacy of the Gods series. I thoroughly enjoyed that whole series, and I thought the final instalment, where we're seeing the relationship between Eli and Ava, was absolutely brilliantly done. It was heart-wrenching to read. It was quite difficult to read in some places, but so well done. And this is kind of another marriage of convenience tale, because Ava has seemingly married Eli as a marriage of convenience, and when this book starts she's actually lost her memory. So quite a lot of the book is we're trying to figure out what had actually happened, why she's lost her memory, and what she can't remember that she's actually done, and then how it was that she came to end up being married to Eli. Like I said, I thought the whole series was brilliant, but this final instalment was definitely a 5-star read and would definitely recommend. Okay, so the next question is favourite new to me author. Now I've actually read quite a number of new authors this year, but quite a few of them I've only read 1 or 2 of their books and haven't read enough really to make a judgment about whether they're kind of my new favourite author. So the author that I absolutely have loved and have now read all of their books but 1 is Gabrielle Sands. So Gabrielle Sands has written 6 books to date, 4 in the Fallen series, and then she's done a duet, the Fallen God duet. I've read the first 3 books in the Fallen series and have read the duet as well, and so I've just got book 4 to go, and I've absolutely loved every single one of these books. These mafia romances are so well thought out, really good plot, really great characters, and I've just kind of really enjoyed the writing style as well, really easy to read. So I would definitely recommend, if you have not read mafia romances before, I feel that they're good ones to get stuck into as well, because they're really, really good, solid mafia romances for sure, with really, really kind of like I say, good plot, storyline and character development as well. The next question is then a book that surprised me. I think my biggest surprise and good surprise was The Sweetest, Oblivion by Danielle, and this is book 1 in her Maid series. The reason this surprised me so much was because so many people had recommended Danielle to me, but they never ever recommended book 1. They always talked about books 2 and 3 being really good, and in fact I'd heard some feedback to say that book 1 was a little bit lackluster, a little bit boring, and you know, not a great instalment in the series. As a result of that, therefore, I kind of been putting off reading anything by her, because I like to read books in order where I can. But eventually I decided that I was going to dive in and give it a go, and I absolutely loved it. And I don't know if it's because I went in with such low expectations and it absolutely blew me away, but I really, really like the intensity of this book. So I'm pretty sure the main characters in this book were Nico and Elena, and the main male character in this book, he had such great intensity. He was one of those sorts of heroes I absolutely love, really, really kind of intense and brooding, and this couple had such great chemistry between them that you could really feel it oozing off the page, and I love it when that happens and when a book is like that. So I literally gobbled this one up, loved every single moment of the read, thought it was a very, very interesting kind of plot, some great characters in there, and definitely sets up the other 2 books in the series. Now, I didn't go on to read any more in the series, but definitely want to, and they're going to be a high priority for me early next year. But like I say, that was the biggest surprise, and I'm so glad that I finally picked it up, and I'm so glad that some of the rumours I heard about it were absolutely wrong. But it does make me excited to get stuck into the other 2 books in the series, because if that is the worst one, then the other 2 are going to be fantastic. So the next question, I thought this was really interesting, and also I recently read something that was a perfect answer to this question, which is why I put it in here. And the question is, what is the most awkward moment in a book that you've read in 2024? So I've recently read a book called The Man I Know by Daisy Jane, and this is essentially a story of a married couple, and they are very happily married. They've been married for about 10 years, they've got children, very, very happy together. However, the husband has kind of got a deep, dark secret, and that basically is that he's got a CNC fantasy. Now, when his wife finds out, and she finds out in quite an awkward way, at first she's a bit upset, but then she's like, well, hang on a minute, we've been married for 10 years, why didn't you tell me that you had this fantasy? Maybe it's something that we can think about and work through. So what they end up actually doing is taking kind of a sex quiz, if you like, where they answer questions about their preferences, their fantasies, what they'd be interested in trying. And it turns out that he's very much a dominant that wants to role play a non-consensual situation, and also wants to tie her up. And in reverse, it turns out that she is a submissive who wants to be degraded and tied up. So the responses in this quiz are actually very complimentary, and so they set about exploring these fantasies together. Now, it comes to a very awkward moment when they act out one of their fantasies, and it's going to be that he's going to kind of stalk her and then kind of like pretend to kind of like assault her, drag her into a hotel room, and then, you know, have his wicked way with her. And this is basically how it plays out. Something goes wrong in their play, and due to suspicious circumstances that happen, they end up getting a knock on the bedroom door at a very, very sensitive moment. And when they open the door, there's a police officer there, and the husband has to say, look, officer, I'm sorry about the noise, but this isn't what it looks like, because it looks pretty terrible. So this was so awkward. I felt so embarrassed for this couple. It was a really, really like horrifying kind of a scene where, you know, they are in a very compromising situation. The wife is actually hurt. She needs to go to the hospital, But other people in this hotel have called the police, and now the police are there. Now, luckily, the police officer is someone we know from another Daisy Jane novel. So all's well that ends well, but it was the most awkward, horrifying, embarrassing, just cringy scene that I have read all year, but it was also kind of like brilliant at the same time and had me literally laughing out loud, but also having me feeling guilty for laughing at this particular scenario, because it wasn't a great situation for them to be in, but so awkward, you had to laugh. So the next question then is, what are my favourite quotes of the year? Now, over the year, I definitely remember taking photographs of specific quotes that I kind of liked, because as I'm reading through my Kindle, sometimes I'll do a screenshot or take a picture of it so that I can kind of reference that quote again later. And there definitely were a couple through 2024, but there were two that particularly stand out and that I still remember. One was from much earlier in the year and is actually from this book here, Darkest Sins by Never Outage, which is book 9 in her Perfectly Imperfect series. In this one, we were following Kai and Nera, and essentially Kai is an assassin who gets injured. Nera is a kind of a mafia princess but working at a vet's, and she ends up kind of giving medical aid to Kai, and then he becomes obsessed with her and starts kind of like stalking her, but they develop a relationship, so much so that she ends up getting pregnant. But before she can tell him, he gets himself into a spot of bother, which means that he is taken from her and it doesn't return to her life for 4 years. And so this time apart is very, very difficult for both of them. One, he is in a very, very difficult place because he's actually been kidnapped and he's tortured for 4 years. And meanwhile, she's having to raise a child on her own, is obviously heartbroken over the fact that this man just disappeared. She doesn't actually know what happened to him, and she is also forced then to marry another man and kind of help out leading her mafia family. So there's quite a lot to this plot, a lot going on. It's absolutely fantastic, really, really enjoyed it. But that probably sets the scene then for the quote that I picked up and really, really liked. Now, this is from Kai's perspective, and it's basically when he's getting tortured, and it says, "A boot connects with my forehead, snapping my head to the side. The next kick catches my ribs. I focus my gaze on the sky as more hits land all over my body, welcoming the pain, hoping it'll be strong enough to overcome the ache in my heart. It's not." And I just absolutely love that, because for me, this is what romance is about, right? Love is such a powerful emotion. It's more powerful than any other emotion. And he is so heartbroken over being parted from Nera that the pain in his heart is actually worse than the torture that he's being forced to endure. And so that really stood out to me, and something that I saved and even shared on my Instagram as well. And then a more recent one from a book called Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This is book 1 in the Devil Knights series. Yes, finally got around to reading it. So I'm not going to talk too much about what it's about here. So stay tuned for my December reading wrap up, where obviously I'll explain more about what the book is about and my full thoughts on it. But there was a portion of this story that really stood out to me, and I even read it to my husband afterwards because of something that had recently happened. And it says, "Do you remember when your mum made you and your friends take Trevor and me hiking with you last summer? You let us do everything. You let us get close to the edge of the cliff, climb boulders. You let Trevor swear. But you wouldn't let us go too far. You said we needed to save our energy for the return trip. That's how you are." What do you mean? Well, it's like you're saving your energy for something, holding back, but it doesn't make any sense. Life is one way and there is no return trip. What are you waiting for? And when I read that, that really just struck me as something true. Right, sometimes we kind of like hold back, or we wait and we say, well, we're not going to do it right now, we're going to do it next month. We can't do that right now, we need to wait for a different time. And it was a real reminder that, you know, life is short, and so we should all grab life with both hands and take the opportunities when they come. Okay, nearly there now. So the next one is what is the shortest and what is the longest book that you read this year. So the shortest book that I read this year was The Alpha's Revelation by Marlo Roy. In fact, that was just a short story and it was free if you sign up to her newsletter. But I really like Marlo Roy's writing. She writes a mega verse and has got a great series called the After End series, and this short story is part of that kind of universe, if you like. So that came in at 62 pages, so the shortest kind of book slash story that I read this year. And in terms of the longest, then it's one I've already mentioned. It's this beast of a book here, Heart of Frost and Scars by Pam Godwin. This comes in at 649 pages. And this is definitely the largest and heaviest book that I read this year as well. And finally then, out of all the books that I read in 2024, which has the highest and which has the lowest rating on GoodReads? So the book with the lowest rating on GoodReads that I read this year is Haven by Astra Rose. That has just got 3.5 stars on GoodReads and I rated it 4 stars. This one was just a novella length story and it was kind of an erotic romance, and it was basically about a woman who was escaping an abusive relationship. She stole her partner's car, which happened to break down outside of a town called Haven, and then she was kind of picked up and rescued, if you liked, by a man who took her to his house and said, you know, I'll fix your car up, we'll get you on your way, but you can stay with us in the meantime. And then there were two other men there, and I can't remember exactly the family relationship, but I think one was a son and one was a cousin or the son's friend, something like that. And so it was kind of a why choose romance where this woman ends up staying and they take care of her, and she enters into a relationship with all 3 of the men. And there's a little bit of romantic suspense in the sense that her previous partner is gonna eventually figure out where she's gone and catch up with her, but now she's got 3 big strapping alpha males who are going to basically protect her. So I really enjoyed the read. It was a fun, quick read and definitely would recommend. And so then the book that I read with the highest rating on GoodReads was A Cage of Ice and Echoes by Pam Godwin. This is book 2 in the Frozen Freight trilogy. So I was not surprised to see it up there very high on the list because all of the books, like I said, were 5-star reads as far as I was concerned in this series. I rated it 5 stars, so absolutely can see why this one was also the highest rated on GoodReads as well of all the books that I read last year. Okay, so there we go. That is my end of year BookTube tag video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, and all that's left for me to do is say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. If you want to know what it's about and also what I thought about it, then stay a CNC fantasy, and he really wants to you know, degrade his wife. The hero in this book, the hero in the story, what's his name? Just leave it at Gabrielle Sands. Or to start off with, if it's an editing difficulty, but and now hopefully you can edit in all the books and things that I just said about her. Okay.